Anunnaki archetype, mapping the God mind, Illuminati. Now, we're not talking about the Bavarian Illuminati. We have the right and opportunity to be illuminated. And what does that actually mean? What did the Anunnaki actually do to us as a species? And how do we activate our full potential? Well, we're going to get into that today with Gerald. Really excited to have him on the program. He's been very busy with these classes that he does, helping people reach their full potential via body antenna, proper posture, having your muscles aligned properly. I mean, I don't know all the ins and outs because I'm not the expert on this, but he is. And it's amazing. I've seen some of the results from people out there that have been going through these classes and just, wow, what if your body is a human antenna and you can activate it to where you can achieve things beyond your wildest dreams via mentally, physically, and spiritually? Well, it's about time for us to achieve our full potential. And this is going to be a lot of fun. Really glad you came on the show, Gerald. How the heck are you? And you're on the
unmute button. I'm doing good, Rex. And it's been a while since we talked. And we're going to do all the things that you just said. We'll talk about all those things.
Absolutely. And we'll probably end up talking about some other things as well. I tend to divagate, on occasion, more often than not. And real quick, folks, I want to let you know about stem cells. Did you know that stem cells are your body's natural healing system? You get a cut on your finger one day and the next day it heals up. How cool is that? How does that happen? Easy. It's your body's stem cells at work. The sad part is by age 65, you've lost 90% of your adult stem cells. But now you may be able to boost your stem cell levels naturally within 1 hour by 30% with a new plant-based capsule. It's plant-based capsule, folks. Everyone's chemistry is different. And for many, this product produces a variety of benefits to help reduce the effects of aging. Oh, yeah. This product comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Visit the website, www.stemup.com/now. That's www.stemup.com/now. All right. Now it's time to get into the program. First things first, the Anunnaki. I want to get into this. I am torn on the Anunnaki archetypes. And here's why. I have been diving very deep into different texts, Sumerian tablets. I've read probably 100 tablets that were translated via Oxford University, the Sumerian tablets. I've read some of Zachariah Sitchin's work, and it all has great material. It's great information, but it's also conflicting. Like, for example, today I found the Marduk prophecy, which might be a propaganda piece written thousands of years ago. So it's like, what's the truth? What's real? Were the Anunnaki real? Like beings? Were they giants? Are the Anunnaki representations of the planets? And when the ancestors saw these crazy anomalies in the sky, like plasma bolts coming down, creating canyon lands and stuff, where they say, oh, those are the gods. I don't know. I'm torn on this. But then you read these tablets and you read these scriptures that say we created man in our image. And then I look at the planets and I say, well, those certainly don't look like me, maybe at a macro level, but not at the micro level. So what's the deal, Gerald? You've got more knowledge in the Anunnaki than probably just about anybody. So where did they come from? Where are they? Were they giants? Are they still around? What are they doing? And I know I'm asking a lot of questions, so you can start wherever you want, man. Mute.
I wasn't supposed to tell you this. Yeah, you're gonna have to remind me about the mute. But I heard last detailed report on the Anunnaki is they're in Vegas in a club playing blackjack and all kinds of poker. They really like that apparently. So,
well, the house always wins, I guess.
Actually, really, there's been indicators. Actually, Paul Hellyer was talking about them being through the Indian Springs base and just north of Las Vegas. They're really liking and they fit in so well because everybody was always in their costumes and stuff,
You couldn't tell the difference.
But what I heard you say was really, really great in talking about, let's just back up and be generic. Let's suppose that there was a ancient race from somewhere else that was colonizing planets and getting resources, and if there was need for help there, that they would use the MO of creating a hybrid species or hybridizing one that was already there to serve their purposes, right? We'll make gold miners, we'll do that. This appears to be a very common theme, kind of like in Star Wars, where everybody's vying for resources all over the universe. They form alliances and things like that. and they cooperate. And sometimes, you know, the enemy of my enemy is my friend, you know, things like that. So they end up with that kind of situation. So it's very convoluted in terms of the Anunnaki, because they appear to be involved with many races through the literature that I've seen. And you mentioned the Oxford source. And I want to say that, like you, I didn't know where to start, which one was real, which one was translated right when I first started looking at this stuff. And so I was searching around trying to find, you know, who had the data that could be at least a launching point to determine if the Anunnaki were even real, or this is just something the Sumerians made up, you know, because they came directly from them talking about their gods, right? They had no problem with the idea that they'd been created by them and that they were serving in their temples. We're the ones that are really freaking about that now, realizing that they didn't have a problem with it. They were happy about it. So they weren't having slave rebellions and all this kind of stuff, you know. They were somehow all of a sudden being completely eliminated when this city went away and the kingship moved over there, as you see in the Sumerian kings list, right? So in terms of, let's just go back and ask ourselves, well, if they created a slave, why would they leave anything in us that would allow us to approach the archetype from the genetics that they created us from? Why would they do that? You know, so the question is, you first ask is, did they do that? And if so, to what extent? So this is where I started. What are the range of capabilities, if this truly happened, for humans? Because we see weird things all over the planet in terms of, some people are in channels, some people have various weird capabilities. You know, it's like the genetics didn't quite keep it clamped and some of it snuck through and started showing up. You know, like the indigo children or the rainbow children that were different somehow genetically than the norm. And so I asked myself that question about the archetype, and it was like, well, to what extent can we approach that archetype, even if it was clamped? And that comes down to our genetics, right? In the Human Genome Project. What does the DNA do, and how, you know, blah blah blah. Now we understand it a lot better than we did then. So we used to think that a lot of our DNA that we didn't understand, we called it junk. Well, now they've mapped it all out and realized that it's doing really amazing stuff, and it's also sensitive to frequencies, can be programmed, can fix your lexicon if you got a genetic error from a developmental disabled variety, you know. That's pretty amazing. So now we know that. We didn't know that long ago, right? So that, to me, in the genetic material, kind of specifies the meat archetype, right? What the meat's supposed to look like, what the avatar meat's supposed to look like. But behind that, as we see with all material, the material is formed from bonds of energy. So we're really energy, and it just looks like it's real. There's no such thing as real matter. It's all energy. It just looks that way to us, right? That's not real. Nothing is real in terms of being non-transient. Okay, and energy can be created or destroyed. It can be created in any form. And guess what? Advanced beings knew that. And in the Lost Teachings of Atlantis, the history of Atlantis, they described the first wave of consciousness coming to this planet to try out form. So they had their energetic form. They didn't need a body. And here on this planet, they decided to play around with form. Well, I want to be a bull and a human mixed. I want to try that out, see what that experience is like, over and over and over. This is from the records, okay? So the idea of a minotaur and a mermaid and all these things, these were real. They really did this. And so I'm telling this little background because we're going to get to this archetype part, I think, because we want to know, when they created us, what did they give us, so that we know what we're aiming for, right? So I'm kind of giving you a little background. Is that okay?
This is great. I appreciate this.
Okay. So in that story, in that document from the Lost Teachings of Atlantis by John Peniel, and I recommend everybody read that if you haven't. It's got one of the best histories of Atlantis and all the things that went on from then forward that I've ever seen. And it heavily involves Thoth, by the way, who they considered their master teacher. So, so in that story, when they took on form, this first wave of consciousness, as they described it, they didn't realize that there was a potential that they were going to lose their ability to get out of that form. back to the source from which they came, which was maybe a higher dimension or different density, if you will, not needing a body. Okay. So when that happened, apparently the demiurgus or the slave system on this planet was so powerful that taking on a form meant that you were susceptible to the potential of being cut off from the source because of what they could do with the spectrum and everything, calcify the pineal gland, all the organs that normally allowed you to go back and forth, like the pineal gland with, well, the spirit molecule by Dr. Straussman. All right, that's a great book where he talks about the pineal and the DMT it produces when it's activated is a chemical transducer that's going back and forth through the meat into the electromagnetic spectrum. So we're looking at the places where energy interacts with you and going, okay, well, is that part of our archetype from our Anunnaki? So I'm looking at all this stuff. So let me go back to the story of being trapped into form. So apparently once they were trapped into form, their peers in the location from which they came decided they couldn't leave their brothers trapped in kind of a prison in form because they couldn't get out. Okay. And at this point, we were given some history in the Roswell alien interview by Errol. It's about on page 100, where she claims that from the domain forces, which she was a member, an engineer, officer, and pilot, that she was in concert and working with who we knew as Ahura Mazda, Enki, who was part of those domain forces, to come back to this planet in this dimension and find the original first wave of consciousness that came here. He must have been part of that as well, or at least part of the domain that was affiliated with the Draco, the Alpha Draconian whole constellation, the Lyrans, and several others. Right? We don't exactly know the full details, but anyway, so he came back, and according to her in that, excuse me, according to her in the Roswell alien interview, Enki Ahura Mazda, who was what? He was the chief deity of Persia at the time that he was in conflict with his brother, who was what? Angra Mainyu, who was Enlil. So Enki and Enlil were the two chief gods in the Persian empire. Okay, right? You with me? So Ahura Mazda's mission, according to Errol, was to come to the Earth, locate those beings from this higher dimension that were trapped in form, and release them, or give them the opportunity to say, okay, we know you got trapped in here. Here's you get to choose now. You're trapped in the form. You like this real good? If it's so, you stay in there. But otherwise, we're going to give you an opportunity to come out. And the way he did that was having a sea, a land, and an air force. There were 3 different divisions that went on the hunt for these beings who were emanating what? The flower of life energy. That's what they described.